Welcome to Buy, Hold, Sell. My name's Matthew Kidman, and today we're getting very cerebral. We're talking about cognitive biases and how that interrupts your good investment performance. I've got Steve Johnson from Forager and Romano Sala from Katana to discuss their biases. Start with you, Steve. Let's have it.
Hi, Matt. I think this investor psychology is a fascinating area, and I actually think you can make money out of the stock market if you understand it really well without ever looking at a financial statement. I do think it's very personal though, so everyone's got their own biases and you need to be aware of yourself rather than what everyone else is, or as well as what everyone else is doing. I find with myself a really big bias is I've got this desire to go against the crowd, and I often do that even when it's not in my own interest. So I struggle to buy other people's ideas. If I read an idea and I go, wow, that's a great idea, and then I just struggle to take that on board and work with it myself, and I'm very stubborn about those sorts of things. So that's something that helps me in a lot of areas, but it's also something that I think is a shortcoming of mine.
Okay, and what about the market itself? Is it got a personality? Is it got cognitive biases?
There's this concept
Mr. Market, as we know.
Nassim Taleb first talked about called narrative bias, and it was picked up by Kahneman in his excellent book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And this is this concept that we love a story, and I see that in the market all the time. You know, you want to buy this stock because China's growing and the consumer's great and you can sell all of your product into there without ever thinking about what that is actually worth in terms of value. Whereas if the story is bad, it's a coal mining stock and the demand for coal is terrible, I don't want to buy it irrespective of what the price is. We love buying that story, and I think that's a real shortcoming that we like taking advantage of.
Okay, Romano, I never even got through Kahneman's book. I must have been a slow thinker all the way.
Makes two of us.
You've got some biases.
Look, I think
They
first...
work for you or against you?
Yeah, look, first I think we are, as human beings, wired in a way which is quite detrimental to good investing. So there's a lot of things that we have, cognitive biases that work against us. Some of the things that we see regularly are recency bias and confirmation bias, and also herding and those sorts of things. But I think the one that stands out as being the bias that most works against investors and ourselves is loss avoidance bias. And that's, you know, the desire to try and avoid the pain associated with taking a loss by putting it off and not dealing with it. But ultimately I think the mark of you as an investor, your success or otherwise, will be how able you are to take a loss.
And how do you get to that? Because any losses I've had, I won't even look at the screen. Do you have to eyeball the actual stock and the code and say, okay, that's it, I've got to go?
Well, I think the first thing is you've got to recognise you've got a problem. Like, you can't help an alcoholic until they recognise you're an alcoholic. So you've got to recognise you have a problem. The best way to do that, investors in the past, and I think of guys like Bernard Barak, who's one of my heroes, you know, he used to review every single trade and also annually review the trades. So by doing that, you recognise repeat behaviours or repeat patterns. Once you've recognised you've got a bias, you've got to put in place a plan and safeguards, and I think to invest with others is a great way to help safeguard against your biases.
Okay, Steve, Romano's given us his therapy for it. How about you? How do you get over your bias of going against the pack?
Look, just on that idea as well, we love moving a stock around amongst the team. So just hand it off to someone else and say, okay, you're free of all of these issues of the past. What do you think about it now? And we discuss it again as a team from a different perspective. And I think that process of involving other people is very important. Look, for me, I try to get better at these things, but I think it's a bit of a blind spot in my arsenal. It's something that makes me quite good at going against the crowd when it helps us as well. I try and take on more of these ideas, be conscious of it and aware of it, but I don't think you can ever make it go away. And that's what a lot of people say to me is, how do I stop doing that? You're not going to stop doing it. You need to try and control it, and you need to try and understand it, and you need to try and work with it as best you can.
So going back to Romano's thing, you've got to acknowledge that you're doing it.
Absolutely. And acknowledge your own personality type and what you are most susceptible to, and sit down every time it happens and say, okay, I've done this before and I know what I'm liable to behave like, and how can I put in place some processes that stop me from doing that, involving other people, involving process in what you do rather than letting your emotions drive your decisions.
So cognitive biases, they're like any other addiction. You've just got to front up to them.